name's Jen. If you're new here, I am a piano teacher of over 25 years. I make videos on tips, tricks and checklists and instructional videos and anything else I can think of, to be honest, to make learning the piano that little bit more fun. If you like these kind of videos, I would love for you to subscribe. If you hit the little bell icon, it will notify you as soon as I upload a new video. Today's topic is encouraging young piano students to practice over the holidays. I do realise that this is a battle. It's a real difficult balancing act to try and manage downtime with also not forgetting everything that they've learned. And I do realise that some of the parents of the students I teach have really struggled with this, and we try to come up with as many ways as we can to keep the learning through the holidays that little bit more fun, but also just to make sure that they're continuing with what they'd learned beforehand. So this is a list of my top tips and tricks to get your young little learners back to the piano. Tip number 1, implement or revise a practice schedule. I do have a video on implementing a practice routine or a practice schedule if you don't have one in place already. So I'll link that blog and video in the description box below. If you already have one in place, the suggestion I would have would be to keep the routine that you have currently and then just split it into different parts of the day. So for example, if a person was to sit down and practice scales first, then pieces, then sight reading, and then maybe something else for fun at the end, I would probably do the first 2 items in a 10-minute practice in the morning and then the other 2 items in a 10-minute practice in the afternoon. Ideally, those things would flow on from each other, but actually just trying to do things around days out and trips and play dates and things, this still encourages some form of progression in those areas, and it gives them a little bit of a sense of what they had before the holidays started. One thing I would encourage you to do is to keep the practice quite flexible. So something that you could say would be after dinner. If the student is expecting to practice after dinner, then really it doesn't matter what time dinner is. If you're out for the day and dinner's that little bit later, that's fine. If you're in and dinner's earlier, that's okay too. So it just gives you that little bit of a peace of mind that they know it's coming, but you're not under pressure to be home for a specific time to keep them in a routine. Keep it as flexible as you can and try and take the pressure off yourself. Tip number 2, introduce music theory. So music theory really is the background to what you see on the page. So for example, if you're looking at a piece of music, the clefs that you're dealing with, the bars, the timing, the counting, the notes, all of that stuff is music theory. It's what you see that helps you to read and play that little bit better. It used to, I guess, back in the day, used to be called the written side of music. I think that's probably the wrong way to think about it. You can do grades in theory, but actually theory just by itself is, I would say, essential for a musician, and I do try and encourage all of my students to do music theory in some way, shape or form, whether that be through the graded system or not. It really doesn't matter, but it definitely makes you a better musician. And the good thing about theory is you're encouraged actually to not have a piano present and to try and do some of these things away. So you're encouraged to draw your own mini keyboards and things like that, and the tables that we have to help. For this, you can use books, or you can simply go online, download a few sheets and keep them in a folder. So that makes them portable. And that is honestly a really good way of keeping somebody occupied and also thinking about their music in a slightly different way, other than just playing what they see on the music in front of them. Number 3, have a sponsored practice. I love this one. This is a win-win situation. So what you would do is you would set your intention as to how much you were going to practice through the holidays, write it down, and then get some sponsors, say from your grandparents or family and friends. And actually you can use this to give the money that you earn to a charity, which is brilliant, and it also gets you thinking about things outside of what you're doing just for practicing for exams and things like that. But actually you could even save the money up, and I've had this with a student not that long ago. She saved up for a Disney piano book, bless her, and it was one that she was going to get anyway, but she wanted to buy with her own money, and her parents were more than happy to let her do it. And you can make this really fun. Try and keep it as light-hearted as you can, but it's a really good way of doing a little and often practice that has a goal at the end. I do have a printable for the sponsored practice. It will give you a tracker so you can track the practice that you do and also the sponsor form as well. If you sign up to my website, you'll be able to receive all of the printables that I mentioned in the video today for free. Tip number 4, hold a mini concert. Now this one's really fun. So what you would do is you would sit down with your child and think about some pieces that they already know that they feel quite comfortable with, even if they just need a little bit of a polish, and maybe even a couple of new ones if they're able to, and decide that as on a specific date, specific time, that is going to be the time for their concert. I have a printable for a program, so they would want to fill this out. You can even list who's present, and then do the full works. Get everyone to dress up. You could have a special meal or some snacks. Make it as big as you can so that they really do feel like the star for a day. Tip number 5, create a countdown chart and tick off the days. You do have to be a little bit careful with this one because I don't want to instill fear into anybody, parent or student. The way that this one would work would be to say, for example, if that student has an exam the other side of the holidays, or a performance, a festival, or even the Christmas concerts that come up are a really good one to go for during the summer holidays. What you want to do is to talk about the excitement that they'll feel when they get through it. Even when performances don't go the way that you expect them to or would want them to, the feeling you get after having done it is amazing. It really is. And if you can focus on that aspect of it, counting down the days to that performance or to how it will feel after you've done it is so encouraging. One little thing you can do is if your child has had a break from school and therefore from a piano teacher at school, you can encourage them to learn a new piece or polish off a piece or a scale that they've learned for that teacher for the first lesson, and talk constantly about how exciting it will be to be able to show their teacher that they've managed to do this over the holidays, and really focusing on the excitement is a good way to go with this one. You do have to know your child. I honestly don't think this would work for everybody, as everybody's personalities are different. So that's why there are so many tips in here, because you just need to find the ones that you think will motivate them the most. But if you think that this could work and you can manage to do it as well, that will be a brilliant way of doing it. Trying to get them to look to that event as a positive rather than something to just be nervous of. Now, nerves are not a bad thing. I actually think nerves are a really good thing. If somebody's nervous, it just means that they care about what they're doing. I would say an absence of nerves sometimes can be a little bit unnerving, pardon the pun. So definitely understand the nerves, but focus on the positives. Tip number 6, record them playing some pieces. What I would do is to sit down, make a list again of pieces that they feel quite comfortable with already, and then start to revise those pieces and record them, either just the audio or audio and video. Something I do with my students quite regularly is to sit down and decide on making a CD. Now we tend to make this for a specific person, so for a mum, a dad, grandparent, and we would like to, if we can, have a date in mind to have that done. That just stops this from being an endless cycle. So for example, recently one of my little boy students, he decided to make a CD for his grandparents, which was so lovely, and it's something we're actually looking to do at the start of next year. So he's going to be giving it to them for their anniversary at the start of next year, and we've managed to find out what their first dance was for their wedding, so we're learning that piece now, and it's a really nice way to kind of encourage them to play other kinds of music, so not just exam pieces or not just pieces in their book, but all kinds of pieces. And if you do this for a loved one particularly, finding out what that loved one, that person might like to listen to, is again another way of encouraging to play different genres and pieces that they may never have even heard of. So this one has so many benefits to it. The one other little tip you can do is to create an Instagram that is just for these performances. So I would again be a bit careful with this one and make sure that perhaps you're managing this. But I have a few students that do this at the moment, and then one of them, bless her, she tags me in every time, which is just so lovely. So creating that list and then having them upload when they're ready, again, it keeps them on focus and keeps them learning and reading as they go. Tip number 7, play some games. Who doesn't like playing games? This is great stuff. So some of my favourite games, pretty easy to get involved with for the parents as well. The first one is that you would shout out a scale and that student would have to run to the piano and play it. This works probably more for the little ones, but actually they love just running to the piano. I think that's probably half the battle. Some of the parents in the past have kept a checklist on the fridge of whether they do it right or whether not. You don't need to do that. If you think that's something that would really motivate them, then fine, go for it. But you don't have to, really. I think half the fun is just running to the piano and playing something and seeing how fast they can do it. Another little game you could play is to do with dynamics, so the louds and the quiets of a piece. What you would do is you'd have them sit down and play a song that they're very familiar with, and they're going to put some of these louds and quiets into it. Your job is to sit, not looking at them, and see what you can hear and write down the dynamics that you hear. This piece wants to be quite short, so it could be that they start quietly, they crescendo, so they get louder to a loud bit in the middle, then they diminuendo down to a quiet bit at the end, and you just write down what you hear. In here, it's a two-way street. So I actually usually play first, they write things down, and then we switch roles. And it's so much fun. And to be honest with you, they quite like it when you get it wrong. So if you're really good at this, just get a couple wrong and that will make them happy. Now the third tip is to use a character, or the one that I have is called a cheeky monkey. You would cut him out. So I do have a printable for this. So again, if you go onto the website, you can download this printable for free. You cut him out and you place him in different pieces. So if they're working from a book, place him in different pieces in the book. You'd want to start with pieces that they already know, and then maybe even some pieces that they don't know, hence we call them cheeky. And it really gets them interested to see. It's a bit like the elf on a shelf. It's like, what are they going to do today? And so if they don't have a book that they're working from, and they do tend to work from sheets, again, same thing applies. Leave the sheet out, pop them on the sheet, and the printable that I have does actually ask them to play this piece. And again, what you can do is use this in conjunction with the recordings. So you could decide to record any pieces that the cheeky monkey decides that he wants you to play. You learn them and then you record them for him. Tip number 8, look into some music apps. There are quite a lot of music apps out there. Some free, so I definitely have a look into that. Some are note reading apps, which are brilliant in terms of sight reading, and some are music theory apps. Again, you can take them on the go, and the child feels like they're getting a bit of a game, but actually they're learning a lot as well. Tip number 9, turn music into a listening activity. Music is something that is brilliant to play and equally brilliant to listen to. You can learn so much from listening to other musicians playing pieces, and you can definitely pick up on techniques that they use. It's the same in sport. By watching other sports people, you can learn an awful lot from them. And it's something that in exams, for example, they do use oral tests to kind of test out this part and introduce this part to people. But this activity goes a little bit more into it, and it makes it a little bit more personable. So I have a printable on the website that lists out a few questions for them to answer whilst they're listening to this piece. So it might ask them if they think the piece is happy, sad, scary, if they think it's loud or quiet. And then what that should do then at the end is encourage them to write a story that goes along with the answers that they've written. And there's even an opportunity to draw a nice little picture to go along with it. But using stories in pieces is something I do all the time, even with my adult students. As a person learns a piece, they actually read it less. Now, it probably seems quite obvious, but over time, you start out at the beginning really reading everything about that piece. And then as you start to learn things by heart, your eyes tend to go down towards your hands and the music becomes a little bit obsolete. The problem with that is when you're expected to perform something and put some character into it, you don't have those visual reminders because you're not looking up. So by putting a story that's more personal into this piece, you don't need your music in front of you in order to keep that character going. So this is something that I encourage people anyway. This is just a little introduction into that kind of gives them that little bit of fun as well. Now what you can do is to laminate the sheet and use a dry white pen so that way you can use it over and over again if you're out for days out or on holiday abroad. Or you can print out lots of these and keep them in a folder, and that way you have a record. On the blog that I have that goes along with this video, there's also a little list of pieces there that might give you a starting point to give them something to listen to. I really hope you found this video helpful. I would love to have you as a subscriber. But again, please get the little bell icon just so that you know when I upload a new video. And if there are any topics that you'd like me to cover, please leave me a comment down below. I'll certainly be very open to suggestions. I have a ton of ideas, but having suggestions from you really does help. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.